This podcast discusses true crime, which may entail violence and other material intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised.
And it's Lexi.
And today, I'm back on my true crime nonsense. It's probably going to be a two-parter.
Ooh, it's been a while since we've done one of those.
I know. So this one is kind of like, so I looked back at our Discord, and this one was actually suggested to us like back in August. It's the snow.
Sorry, guys.
I forgot to add it to my list, but then I remembered like looking at the Discord. I'm like, there has to be something in here, and boom, I found one.
Is it the dingo?
No, it's the Snowtown murders.
Oh, okay. Just because we were talking about the dingo ate my baby case, like at work the other day, and I was like, I should actually cover that case one of these days.
Wasn't that talked about in the Discord too for a while ago? I can't remember.
Yes, because we have at least one of our Discord members who's Australian, and so I think we were talking about another Australian crime, and they were talking about us covering that case because it was something along the lines of originally the family was presumed complacent in the child's death, and not to spoil this episode if we're going to cover it, but then remains were found that matched the story of the parents saying that the dingo got into their tent and got to their infant. So they basically imprisoned grieving parents who were completely innocent. So it's like an infamous case. It's probably the most infamous case in Australia of that nature.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, this one I guess was a pretty big case in Australia as well, just because it went on for so long. So
we're really going down under with
it.
these episodes.
Yeah, we really are. So today's case has a huge trigger warning for crimes against the gay community, sexual assault on a child, mentions of animal killing, and cannibalism. I don't go into detail with any of these assaults. Like, I just kind of mention that it happened. Like, I don't see the point in going into detail and stuff like that. Like some podcasts do, and I don't see the point of it.
Same. I try to keep that as mild as possible. Like it's like when I covered the Junko Furuta case, I'm like, I'm simply not going to go into the graphic details of what was done to her.
Yeah, I just like some people are like, well, they really like the gritty details. Well, no, you're not going to find the gritty details here. I'm sorry.
Like, we're sorry, we're not the podcast for that. Ooh.
No. So
you
yeah,
hit me where it hurts. My goodness.
Yeah, we have a whopping doozy. That's why it's going to be a two-parter for the mainly because like it's give you guys a break in between. All right, so we ready?
As ready as I can be after those trigger warnings. Oh boy.
Okay, so John Justin Bunting was born September 4th, 1966 in Inala, Queensland. He was the only child of the Bunting family, and as a child, he could come and go as he pleased, always obeyed curfew, and he was always home on time. He had plenty of friends that he would go out to play with and was very friendly and outgoing as a child, but this would all change when he was around 8 years old and the accident occurred. So this is a trigger warning for sexual assault. John was on a play date at a friend's house, and they were playing in the basement while the parents weren't home. The boy's older teenage brother kept coming down to check on them until he eventually came down with some rope. John tried to flee but was hit and tied up, and while he was tied up, he was assaulted by the teen and the teen's friends.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. The book I read went into great detail about it, which I don't think was necessary. I'm not doing that. But it happened, and it was horrible just to read about it. What was I? So he came home later that evening, upsetting his parents, but he did not tell them what happened, as he himself, like, he wasn't really sure what happened or how to explain what happened. He was just confused on what to do.
Yeah.
His mom grounded him for being home late, and after a week of him being, on top of it, he got grounded.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. After a week of him being grounded, he would still not go far from the house and started distancing himself from his friends and his family, no longer the cheerful and outgoing little boy that he was before the accident. His parents had tried cheering him up, but they were at a loss. A year later, that same teen boy that attacked him cornered John and threatened him if he told, and the boy's friends did the same. It was at this point that John started hurting animals and doing poorly in school and was failing everything but chemistry by the age of 12. He also started getting into fistfights with the other kids and became non-compliant while at home, becoming a troubled boy. He started skipping school and staying out late, and it was around the age of 13 that John met Benny, an older man in his 30s that he met while he was walking through town. As John was walking by the park at night, and Benny warned him about rapists that hung around the area at night. So Benny sounds like a good guy, but he's not. He was a neo-Nazi.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's a lot of neo-Nazis in this case.
What year does this take place?
Um, the he was born 1966, so this is like the 70s.
Okay. Okay.
So Benny was a neo-Nazi, and the two of them would meet up, smoke, and talk about their hatred for the gay community. So these two guys, they would correlate gay men with being pedophiles. They saw them as one and the same, which
Okay.
obviously that's not the case. It's
Mm-hmm.
just their neo-Nazi minds. Just Benny was like
Sure.
forming John's like mind with these ideas.
I mean, we see that now. Like we see that
Oh
in
yeah,
modernity, unfortunately. Like that's something that's it's almost like it was a big issue for a while, and then I almost feel like that type of rhetoric calmed down, and I feel like in the last couple of years we're seeing it a lot more.
I think like I see it a lot when it comes to discussion about bathrooms.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see
Yeah,
it a
and
lot then.
I get it a lot, unfortunately. I mean, my like my kids got two moms, so that's something that I deal with in a way that like in a way and in a frequency that I wish I didn't, where people just, they're like, "Oh, well, what's that exposing your kid to? Is that grooming? Blah blah blah." No, she just has two moms. Like it's not
Yeah,
it's not
I
this
don't
like
get it.
weird hidden agenda where I'm doing these rituals or whatever. It's just it is, it is what it is. And it's just, it sucks because I feel like I grew up combating a lot of homophobia. And I was closeted for most of my life. I'm sure you guys remember, even in earlier episodes, I wasn't realized slash out that I was gay. And now that I am, it's almost like, wow, this is a lot of the stuff that I was just dealing with growing up before marriage, before even marriage equality
Mm,
was federally legalized. And it's almost like coming back around. And it's so frustrating.
yeah, it's like one step forward, two steps back,
Yeah.
seems like.
Yeah.
So yeah, these two, they would correlate gay with being pedophile, and the two of them had a small system going where John would hang around gay bars to be propositioned, and he would have the man follow him to a dark alley where Benny would attack him. For some reason, this got John going back to class, and he also started working out to be as strong as Benny since he wanted to be a mugger. That was like his dream. He just wanted to mug people.
Oh,
Uh,
I was hoping that was going to be like Australian slang. I'm like, oh, that's like a physical job. You're like, no, just someone who mugs people.
Someone who mugs people. That's all he wanted to do.
Great. Okay. Awesome.
He still continued to lure men for Benny, but it was at this point that John was starting to question his own sexuality, since his only experiences were with men at this point in his life.
Mm-hmm.
So at age 15, he decided to go to a party like a normal teenager, but wanted to hook up with a girl to see how he felt. 4 months later, when he was 16, he found out the girl he hooked up with was pregnant.
And that's certainly a different sort of deal in the 70s than it would be,
Yes.
you know, today. I mean, even today, it's not like that's like, oh, that's no big deal. Like, that's still kind of a big deal. It's just
Yeah,
in
it
the
is.
70s, you had even less options for something
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah. Well, he offered to marry her and to be there for her and the baby, but she only wanted financial support from him as she thought that he was richer, as he always had cash on him. But she didn't know that it was from mugging people.
From
She
his
thought his
habit of
family
mugging.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, she thought his family was rich and she was trying to milk him for all he had from his family.
Sweet.
He ended up getting a job to pay for child support and worked at the crematorium where he would go on to steal gold plated teeth off of bodies and eventually moved into an apartment with his friends. Around this time, Benny had died of throat cancer. So Benny's out of the picture.
throat cancer. That's not a common thing to take young. Well, maybe was he a smoker? Maybe.
Yeah, he
I feel
was.
like okay. I was gonna say I was like, never mind. Actually, it was probably a lot more common back in the day because people smoked like they got paid in the 70s.
Yeah, he was like at 30s, 40s. So,
That's still
which
young
is
to
still kind of
die
young.
of cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. So John started acting like a normal guy around his friends, but he became obsessed with pedophiles and would often go on rants about them and the gay community. Like the way it sounded in the book, it was like, well, if you were around John, you were around that rant. Like that's all he would talk about, all he would focus on and try to get people like to see his point of view.
I feel like we all kind of know someone like that,
Oh
where like they have
yeah.
like
Yeah.
one opinion and it's their whole personality.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened with him. Like this was his personality, was like his stance on the gay community and pedophiles. So a few years went by and his son had turned 2, and when he had turned 2, his mother told John that she was moving the two of them to England. John was upset at this fact that he would never see his child again, but he also realized that now he was not tied to Anala and decided to leave the area with his friends, which did not go smoothly at all. They were all non experienced drivers who did not know the terrain or the area at all or what direction they were going. They were just kind of like driving around with no money and no map.
Hmm. Just
Eventually,
around. Where's this taking place? Queensland?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So eventually they ended up in Adelaide and all of them had a job by the end of the day. While looking for a job, John was also searching for the gay community as they were more public in this area than where he was originally from. So he found a job at the slaughterhouse and ended up bunking in an apartment with 2 of his friends. John started ordering weapons from a neo-Nazi magazine that he had and started taking metalworking courses at the local community college, where he met a girl named Veronica Tripp, who he ended up marrying after a few months after meeting.
There are neo-Nazi magazines that you can order weapons from.
Apparently, yes.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I didn't like that either when I read it. Did not like that.
This is a
The more
terrible episode for me. You're like, oh, my podcast partner's gay and Jewish. Let's hit her with this doozy.
it's hit with
She's
everything.
gay, Jewish, and has a kid. Like, my God.
So this was, yeah, it's a rough one. I'm sorry. It was recommended, and I figured we should do a recommended one, and this one just popped up. I didn't realize how bad it was going to get but then it was like too late. I already started.
Look, the thing is this is a true crime podcast. It's not like I'm shocked and offended at this point. That would be insane of me to be like, wow, how dare you cover something so dark? It's just, whoo, this feels very targeted.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm messing with you.
They lived on John's friend's couch, but would move into their own place outside of Adelaide. So where they moved was like a rundown place, and that's where John would thrive.
What's the definition of thrive here?
Like he made friends, he could do whatever he wanted because it was like a high crime area. It was just his place.
Great.
Yeah. In this area was a man named Barry Lane who lived the street over from John and Veronica. Barry is a character. He had recently gotten out of prison for assaulting 2 young boys and tried to keep a low profile, but while trying to keep a low profile, he dressed as a woman, which for this time was not super common. So I don't know how he was trying to keep a low profile, especially in this area in this time period.
Yeah, I just like I'm guessing did he just like pass really well as a woman and so people were just
I
like
have
that's a
no
lady and
idea.
just like didn't think twice about it because
I
that's the
don't think
only way I
so.
can think you'd have it because it's not like people like I want to keep a low profile. I'm gonna cross dress. Like I feel like that's you know
No, because people knew it was Barry. They knew who he was. I don't think he passed well. I don't know.
what? Okay.
I don't know.
Definitely confused by his methods, but keep going.
It gets weirder with him.
Great. That's it's been a while since we've said it gets
It's
weirder.
been a
I'm
minute.
very happy we get to say it again.
Oh, he would often go by his alter ego, Vanessa. He had a relationship with a 13-year-old boy named Robert Wagner who came from an abusive home. So yeah, he had this relationship, which obviously is statutory. Like
Yeah.
it's not really, it's consensual, not consensual,
Mhm. Mhm.
because you
Mhm.
can't consent at 13.
Exactly. I mean, this is
Uh,
this would be grooming used in its actual definition. I know that's one of those words
yes.
that's misused and abused a lot, lately, but that is very much what grooming is.
Hmm. So Robert would run away every so often and stay with Barry, and he would go between Barry's house and his parents' house until he finally just stayed with Barry. This cycle went on for years. Robert had eventually become friends with John, and John invited him over and he brought Barry, who he introduced as his fiance. So during the whole dinner, Barry was like very crass and unpleasant. It's like, and he kind of like also knew that how John felt about the gay community. So he was kind of like pushing buttons just to see how far he could get. But John was surprisingly calm during the whole ordeal, even whenever he caught the two of them intertwined in his house. So,
Okay, that's a
yeah,
polite way of wording that on the podcast.
yes,
Finding the two of them intertwined.
intertwined.
I'm gonna have to use. I don't know where I'm gonna get to use that, but I'm gonna try.
When the two of them left, John said to Veronica, quote, "He'll get his, don't you worry."
Don't like that.
Mm-mm. So John had made friends with the other neighbors in the area, one being a man named Mark Hayden. His closest friend, however, was Robert. They had a third friend named Clint, who John would constantly pick on for no reason, calling him gay slurs and a pedophile. Even though, like, neither
Like
were
that was
true
just a
for
friend
Clint.
of his. Like I feel like there's a difference
Yeah,
between like jokingly calling your friend like, a dickhead or something and just being like,
yeah,
"Hey, friend of mine, you pedo." Like, what?
yeah. I don't know why he did. Like, he just picked Clint to, like, just pick on, pick on, pick on.
Weird.
So John eventually left his job to work the government benefit system like his friends did and live off of benefit checks. So none of these men worked. They just had like benefit checks. Like I guess they claimed like false disability or something like that,
Oh,
just
okay.
so they wouldn't have to work.
And the system was probably a lot less gate kept in the 70s, I would imagine.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's probably easier to get away with. So Barry knew he bothered John by just existing and would constantly push his limits to see how far he could push John's patience. One day, the men were just hanging around when John started picking on Clint again, calling him a pedophile and making japes about him touching kids, even though by all accounts it was not true. But John started to believe that it was, and out of nowhere, he took a shovel and beat Clint with it, killing him in front of Barry, Mark, and Robert.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Like he started to believe like his own lies and was like, well, I need to take this pedophile off the face of the earth. I might as
That's
well just do it
insane.
now.
He just found someone to like pick on basically, and then he was like, "You know what? I'm correct." And then
Yeah.
just beat him to death in front of their friends. That's wow.
Yeah. Obviously, the men were shocked, but they did
Yeah.
nothing to retaliate back. And Barry stopped trying to push John's buttons. He was like, you know what? This guy's crazy. Like, I think John also kind of used this to kind of like set the tone for him trying to be a leader and to
Okay.
show men, like the other men, what he is capable of.
Like scaring everybody into submission basically.
Yeah. Robert and Barry cut up the rug that Clint was on, rolled him up, and drove him out to the outback and buried him. So when it came to John and Veronica, he started losing interest in her and started having an affair with an older woman named Suzanne Allen, even though he really wasn't interested in her. Then he started a full on affair with a woman named Elizabeth Harvey and met her teen son, Jamie Vlasikis. So Jamie had been abused physically and sexually by his father and stepbrother and was
Mhm.
considered a troubled boy. John kind of figured this out about him. Like he didn't know the full details, but he got the
Mhm.
sense about it. And he
Okay.
knew how Jamie felt, so he took a fatherly role with the teen, which sounds
Okay.
wholesome, but it gets dark.
No, it doesn't sound wholesome to me in this context. I know exactly
No,
what you mean.
yeah,
I know you don't mean in terms of caring for him. I know you mean in terms of controlling him.
yes. He wanted the two of them to move into his house with him and Veronica. He wanted to move, Let me just repeat that again. He wanted to move his mistress into his house with his wife and just expected his wife to be okay with it.
I actually know someone where something very similar happened to them, believe it or not.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Where like they found out that their boyfriend had like this entire secret family. And then he was just like, I'm going to blend it together. And both the women were like, no, you're not.
Oh my God.
Anyway, neither one of them are still with him. Thank God.
I would hope not.
But yeah, he was just like, girlfriend, meet my other girlfriend. And they were like, what?
Like, unless you're in a consenting polyamorous relationship, I suggest not doing that.
Yeah, same.
So Veronica had known of the affair and they all moved in together. And at this point, Veronica would stay with friends or family for weeks or months at a time. But after a year, she just never came back.
Hmm. I wonder if she just didn't have resources. Like, I wonder if that was part of it. If maybe like she didn't work or she
I don't
just
think
didn't have the
either of them
money to leave.
worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. While Jamie was living with John, John taught Jamie how to torture animals and to get more comfortable with killing. He eventually wanted Jamie to think killing people was okay. So after a while, Clint's body was found, but the police had no leads. His body being found was on an episode of Australia's Most Wanted, and as John, Elizabeth, and Jamie were watching, John turned to them and said, "quote I did that one. He was a pedo."
Oh my God.
Yeah, and Elizabeth had only said, "quote Good on you." End quote.
Yeah, because like they don't have the context. I didn't realize that guy was actually completely innocent.
Yeah, yeah. Even so, like he's confessing to killing somebody. I don't know if I
Right?
could, pedo or not. Like you could have called the police. You could have done anything else. I don't know. John explained that everyone knew that Clint was hurting children, so he put an end to it, even though, again, it wasn't true. Because he was obsessed with the gay community and pedophiles, he built a wall in his house where he put up names and photos of people that Barry had told him were either gay or hurting children, even though none of them were actually hurting children. And it's unknown if they were part of the gay community or not.
This is literally
Yes.
like the most extreme definition of just like making up a guy to get mad at.
That's what he was doing. Like the way I pictured it, it was like it sounds like he had one of those walls that police make with like lines
Mm-hmm.
connecting everything. Like he had
Yeah.
one of those.
That's like what I'm picturing too, or like the tinfoil hat, or like again, I don't know if you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but like the Pepe Sylvia episode where Charlie's got like the wall of all the
Yeah,
mail. Can we talk about the mail, Dennis? Like that's what I'm picturing. And what's crazy is like he could have just, been a sort of vigilante and like actually just gone after pedophiles. But he didn't.
but
He just
no.
found random people, convinced himself they were pedophiles, and then was like, I guess I'll kill them.
Yeah, yeah. So the point of this wall was that he would call and harass these men and tell them to kill themselves or be killed, essentially. So some of the men called the police about these calls, but then they would just end up being investigated themselves for the rumors that John was spreading about them being pedophiles. So it kind of backfired.
Yeah.
So many of the men did not call the police and some just moved away. One day, Suzanne Allen's grandkids saw a man named Ray pantsless when he came out of his caravan. So I guess
Pantsless?
Suzanne, yeah, he was pantsless. Like,
Oh, I thought that was his last name.
no,
And I was like,
he was
that's a
just,
strange last name. He was pantsless. Like you
he was
okay.
pantsless. Yeah.
I misunderstood your sentence. Okay, now I got it.
I can see how it was confusing. I did word it weird.
Sorry.
But I guess Suzanne was like this guy's landlord, and his caravan was like kind of in her backyard.
Okay.
So Ray would usually run out whenever he heard a noise, and he did not anticipate children being there. So I guess he heard
Mhm.
something and ran out to see what it was. It might have been the kids, might have been something else, but either
Yeah.
way, the kids saw him nude.
Oh.
So yeah, the kids ran back to Suzanne scared. And word of
Mhm.
this incident traveled and turned into a rumor that he was trying to attack the children, and the rumor reached John. We can all see where this is
I
going
can
to
yep,
go.
I know exactly where this is going. Yep. Mhm.
John had then gone to Suzanne to see if this was true, which she said it was, even though it wasn't. So later that night, John and Robert went to the caravan while Ray was in bed. So Ray was not surprised to see them standing over him, as they were his friends and would usually come by whenever.
Mhm.
But they dragged him out of bed and he thought they were just messing around, so he laughed.
Oh, no.
The two men ended up strangling him to death, and John hit him with a bat.
Okay. So, post-mortem, I mean, not that that detail necessarily
No,
matters,
they
but
kind of
just kind of
beat him with
all
a
at the
bat
same
and then
time.
strangled. Yeah,
Okay. Yep.
yeah. There's a lot more detail to it, but it's very graphic in the
Yeah.
book. If you guys want to read the book, it'll be in the show notes. It's
Mhm.
on Kindle Unlimited if you have that. So if you're that curious. Elizabeth was there and took part as well. John and Jamie then dug a hole in the garden and buried his body there wrapped in a curtain. So Ray was considered a quote perfect victim, like Clint was,
Mhm.
as neither of them had friends or family that would check on them or notice that they were missing.
Okay.
So John thought he could get away with it. And Ray was on government benefits and would still receive checks after his death that John would collect from Suzanne.
Oh, wow.
John, Elizabeth, and Jamie had moved 70 miles east from Adelaide to a place called Murray's Bridge. John still visited Adelaide quite frequently to see his friends and to collect all his checks. His friend Mark married a woman named Elizabeth that did not respect or like John at all. Like she would make jokes about him, like she would pick on him, so like she just couldn't respect him or she
Mhm.
hated him. She had a weird feeling about him,
Yeah.
which did not sit well with John at all.
Yeah.
So to get back at her, he befriended her sister Jody and her nephew Fred Brooks. He figured that if he can't win her over, he's going to win over her family and kind of isolate her from them.
Which is a very textbook sort of abuser thing to do.
Oh yeah,
Is to
he's
they say that what is it, the people who are manipulative manipulate the people around their victim as well to
hmm
further isolate the victim.
yeah, he's I guess was like very charming and could like get whoever he wanted to be like loyal to him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
he's
sounds like it.
yeah, he's very good at that. After that, Mark and Elizabeth moved away and John became more dependent on Suzanne. However, Suzanne died, and there are two possibilities as to what happened, but it's unsure what the truth is. So, the first possibility is that the two of them had a falling out and she threatened to go to police, resulting in her murder. The other
Hmm.
possibility is that John walked in to find her already deceased in her bed from one of her many health issues.
Okay.
So, nobody really knows what truly happened to Suzanne, but either way, she was dismembered and buried along with Ray, so John could still collect her government benefit checks as well.
Wow.
With all these checks, John would pay his friends portions of them to keep their loyalty. Essentially, the
Hmm.
problem was that this money could not just sit around, or the government would notice that something was off. So he
Hmm.
funneled the money to Mark and rental properties, including an old bank building in Snowtown.
Okay.
They would go on to use this building in the future by using the vaults to hide bodies by putting them in barrels of acid.
Oh, okay. So this is where Snowtown's coming in.
This is where Snowtown's coming in, and this
Okay.
is where we're going to stop for the day.
Oh, okay. We're going to go right to the namesake of the murders and then stop there.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
because
Because like all those murders happen and they're not technically those are not technically the Snowtown murders yet, right? Or are they? I
not
guess a part of
yet.
it. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So my script is 10 pages long, so I figured stop right in between, right down the middle. Yeah,
Wow. Oh man. That is a lot so far.
yeah. I didn't realize it's only been like 23 minutes. I thought it's been like at least 30, 35.
Oh, same. Yeah, it's been a very intense. The thing with episodes like this that are very serious is they're always shorter than we expect because there's very little banter. Like
Yeah,
for our other episodes, we can't like interject and like make joke. I mean, we can, but it just
it's
feels
cucky.
gross to joke
Yeah,
about stuff like this. Like I'm just not gonna do that. I'll save my jokes for like,
yeah.
when I talk about the Jersey Devil or how Marie Antoinette was a CIA agent or whatever the conspiracy was. I don't know. Is that one? Can I make that a thing?
Probably. But yeah, so that's we're gonna take a break for today. Um, I'm sorry for anybody who also feels like this is targeted. It's not.
This feels very this feels like the anti what's the podcast called? Shoot, is it Behind the Rainbow?
Beyond the rainbow.
Beyond the Rainbow. That's it. I've
Yeah.
listened to a bunch of her episodes where she talks about like crimes of the LGBT, and I was like, this feels like the anti that, where it's just many crimes against the LGBT, and then just random
Yeah.
people, which actually that's what it's feeling like. It's feeling like random people that this guy just slapped labels on so far.
Yeah, this guy's crazy.
And he suffered
Like there's no other
something
word.
horrific. Like no question. He suffered something absolutely
Mhm.
horrific, and I completely understand to a point why he made the connections he made. But oh man, where it went from there is just daunting and horrible.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's one of those things where like if that didn't happen, all of these people probably wouldn't have died.
Yeah. Yeah, and it
Like
it, it sucks like that stuff like that happens, and I think stuff like that happens, I don't want to say more than people think, but like I don't know if you've seen the discourse on social media of parents talking about like why they don't let their children go to sleepovers at other people's houses. And like that's kind of why like there's a lot of people who in growing up themselves had experiences where they were targeted at sleepovers by family members and they don't want the same for their children,
hmm
which I think is completely understandable. And some of those things like I grew up going to plenty of sleepovers. I mean, my parents always knew like the families, the parents that I was going to. But still, I almost feel like lucky that nothing happened at sleepovers for me because some of these stories that people have.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I feel bad for child John,
Yeah.
but like unfortunately a lot of people go through trauma like that and they don't grow
Hmm.
up to be serial killers.
Exactly. I mean, that's the fact of the matter is that the majority of people who go through something like that do not turn into, I mean, Nazi serial killers, truly.
Yeah.
And we have, there's a saying in a lot of therapy that's, what happened to you isn't your fault, but it does become your responsibility.
hmm Yeah. So yeah, that was very heavy for a first part episode. It gets
Hmm.
a little heavier, so that's why we're breaking it up for you guys. I know a lot of you guys probably like the really long,
Hmm.
heavy episodes, but like we like to break it up.
Hmm.
Just kind of makes it easier to listen to and talk about.
Yeah, and I it also makes it easier to research, but also these episodes are good because I think that's part of what people like about our podcast is they can get the really serious episodes and then they can just get total bullshit like the next week. You never know what you're gonna get. I don't know if I sent you. Speaking of which, I don't know if I sent you the picture that one of our listeners made for me. Hold on, I'm texting it to you right now because it cracked me up and it has to do with our last episode. All right. I just texted it to you. She's like, you guys can put that on a t-shirt. I give you permission.
Is it? It hasn't popped up yet. Oh, there it is. Oh, I saw that. It was in the Discord. I know a roadkill guy.
Oh, I didn't. Oh shoot, I gotta check the Discord more. But yeah, I know a roadkill guy. And actually, I went to D&D with said roadkill guy yesterday. So I was like, I brought you up in the podcast, and you're not gonna believe why. They thought it was great.
Oh my god. Yeah, I was dying when I was editing this because like so Riverside uses like it breaks down like the episode into chapters automatically, like with
Which is really
AI.
cool that it like sorts it like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And like it had this whole chapter say discussion of roadkill.
Yes, I did. No, that's correct. She sent me the picture, and it really did say discussion of roadkill. Apparently, we talked about it enough that Riverside is like this is its own section.
Our AI was like, okay, like I can roll with
Yeah,
this.
roadkill. Also, I apologize in advance if you guys can hear my dog in the background. It would be a low growly noise. She's every single time I podcast right at the end, she decides that now is the time that we need to play tug of war.
And mine's just laying there.
waiting for his baby brother he doesn't know is about to
Oh my
happen.
gosh, I know. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks he gets a baby brother
I'm so
with a
excited.
missing toe. Did I tell you he's missing a
Oh,
toe?
do you do this on purpose? I mean that in the nicest way possible.
His mom ate it. His mom ate his toe when she was like, I guess, eating the placenta, as cucky as that is, that animals do. And
And
she just
just
like
ate his toe.
munched his toe.
Oh, we had a dog come in that we had to do a prepudal repair on because while his mom was grooming him shortly after birth, she accidentally ate a piece of his prepuce.
Ugh. Oh my god, I don't know what's worse. That's terrible.
And then we had the one dog one time where the owners brought it in for like a totally separate issue. And they're like, by the way, we think his mom ate his leg. The dog, in fact, was missing a leg. We don't know where it went. That
Maybe he
doesn't
left it
happen
at home.
often.
He just left it at
You get
home.
to
It's
that,
fine.
you see, shoot, I forgot my leg. Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Welcome to A Little
So
Wicked. I'm glad we're on YouTube now. This is fun.
yeah, we're almost up to 30 followers on YouTube. We got a couple in a week.
Nice.
I
That's
know, right?
awesome. That's really
For just
cool.
like for just like a handful of videos, like we get a couple new followers every week.
That's not bad. I dig it. I
Mm-mm.
love it.
Yeah, so I guess you guys like seeing us. As weird as that sounds.
Happy to hear it.
Happy to hear it.
I'll keep mixing up my hats. I've got my Intercourse Pennsylvania hat. Maybe next week it'll be the Chainsaw Man hat I have. I don't know. You guys
I'm in
tell
my
me what
work
hats to. I
clothes.
have so many hats. I I'm in my gym clothes. We're doing great.
It's
Like
fine.
I watch videos sometimes of streamers who are very high fashion, like they're always very done up for their YouTube videos and stuff, and I'm
Hmm.
just like I maybe showered at some point in the last 48 hours. Thank you guys for being here anyway.
One day we'll have to do like one of those get ready with me's like, during a conspiracy theory or something. Not a true
It's
crime.
gonna be a
I think that's weird.
it's gonna be a really short conspiracy theory because I'll be like, get ready with me, and then I put on a t-shirt and I'm done. And that's it. It's just like a fun fact. Like it's not even a get ready with me. It's like, get ready with me. Here's a fun fact. You know? Like I'll be like, do you know I'll be like putting a hat on. I'm like, did you guys know that all worker bees are female? Great, we're done. Next video tomorrow.
Or we could just do like a mukbang. That'd be fine. I think that'd be easier.
Someone has actually told me that I should do a mukbang video. They're like, that would be so fun. I'm like, you want to watch me eat? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Don't go out to dinner with that person. They'll record you eating.
I will never forget the first time I was like when social media was new, I think I was in like college and someone was like I kept getting this person asking me to like post a picture of my feet and like I never did. But I was like, that's so weird. Is this like a challenge or whatever? And then I learned that they just had a foot fetish. Don't post your
Oh
feet on the
boy.
internet, guys.
No,
Don't do
don't do
it.
that.
Don't post your feet.
Unless you make good money with doing that. But
But I
that's
mean, like
hard to do.
mukbangs are big deal. Apparently, there's a lot of people that just like watching people eat.
Yeah.
I
Sometimes it pops up on my TikTok.
I'm sorry. Um, I laughed hysterically because when I said that, I was like, oh, there's people who just like watching people eat. And there's my fiance who's off screen, who I just heard audibly and loudly go, uh huh. She's one of them. She likes mukbangs. And she really likes watching me eat nachos. I don't know why. Y- oh, we're having a good time.
think we're gonna cut it. We've had enough.
We're going
Cut
to
the
eat
tape.
nachos during our next episode. I'm not going to repeat what's being said off screen. So I, our patrons, I'm so sorry. Our patrons have actually not voted for
No,
the
you guys
bonus
didn't
episode.
vote this
You guys
this
didn't vote.
month.
So, and I did not have time to write up my bonus episode with the week that I had. I worked some overtime and was busy. So I am going to write it up next week. So you guys have like a couple more days to vote. If not, I'm just going to go ham. I do
I
that
kind of don't want you
anyway,
guys to vote
but
because I want to see what Lexi's gonna come up with.
right, don't vote. Let's see what
Oh,
happens.
speaking of the Patreon, we have a new patron.
We have a new
Welcome.
patron. Oh, we're up to 4?
We're up to 4.
Yay!
Welcome.
That's a new PR. That's a patron PR. Yay!
So yeah.
4. That's a good number. 4 is a great number. I'm so excited.
Yes, for you guys watching us on YouTube, if you join our Patreon, you get a bonus episode a month, and you get to vote on what it is, and you get ad-free episodes. Like if you listen to us like on like Spotify and stuff, there's a bunch of ads in the beginning, and sometimes in the middle, and a bunch at the end.
We do try and keep them primarily at the beginning and the end, just so you're not dealing with them in the middle. But at a certain point, whichever service we use is just like we're throwing it in there. We're throwing an extra one in there.
Yeah. But yeah, so you guys can go to our Patreon. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube.
We can say that now. Like, share, and subscribe. I never thought I'd be a YouTuber.
Hey guys, what's up?
And let me tell you, I've discovered the strangest corners of YouTube lately. Like, I'm really into like short horror film YouTube and like alternate reality game YouTube. Like, I'm not into normal YouTubers. Like, I can't, like, people like, oh, you ever seen, I don't know, give me a YouTuber like Jakecepticeye. Like, oh, you ever seen a gamer or whatever? And I'm like, I'm watching this person who I think might not be real fight off an alien. You know, I feel bad. I feel like I can't relate to other people's YouTube experience because I'm just in the most bizarre YouTube rabbit holes.
So that sounds like my book club. I'm in a book club.
Nice.
I'm a nerd. So everyone's going around and they're like, I like romances. I like sci-fi. They're like, Kayla, what do you read? I'm like, horror.
Nonfiction.
Nonfiction, horror, gory stuff. And they are just like, okay.
Oh, I love horror. I absolutely love horror books. I actually like when I see horror recommendations on like Book Talk or Bookstagram, which is rare. Book Talk has a very specific genre that it usually is talking about, which is fine. Whatever frosts your cupcake. But I'm more of a horror person, so when I find people that are like books that genuinely unsettled me, I'm like save.
I have a bunch of those.
That's like 80% of my Kindle library is horror.
Yeah. There's one book though I hit 60% at and I couldn't read anymore.
That was unfortunately me with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. But it was like back when I was in high school. So I think I'm going to try that again because sometimes if I put a book down for a few years and pick it up, I'm like, I totally get it. But I think there was just a lot of business discussion in that book that went way over my head when I was like 17.
This one was about a necrophile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it got weird. It didn't even get like horror. Nope. It was just gross.
Oh.
I'm not even going to say what he did because I don't want you guys to know.
I can only imagine. I don't want to know. I don't know. Don't give me weird dreams before I go to bed.
No. Alrighty. Well,
how did we get here?
I don't know. We just lighten the mood from the god-awful topic I picked.
Yes. Maybe I'll pick something exceedingly silly for next week so that we have a good palate cleanser in between.
We could do that. Yeah. But yeah, so you guys can follow us on all our things, subscribe to us, go to our Patreon, email us at alittlewickedpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us recommendations of what you want to hear. You can critique us if you want, what you like hearing, what you don't like hearing, but be nice because I'll cry. Don't be mean.
If you're another podcast, hit us up. We love doing
Yeah.
collabs.
Yeah, we do like doing collaborations, where we do like an ad swap of whatever. We have done those before.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so I think that was just terribly wicked.
Yeah. That was truly a little wicked.
Okay, stop.